go. This one's turned right side out. This one's still setting like came. Sewed it around. A little bit closer stitch than what I used on the other, but that's what I've got. So I'm gonna probably trim that back a little bit so it's not so much seam there, but there's some of these going on. So this is what it looks like turned around. So this would be the, apparently, I believe, this would be the left sleeve, because this is the front. See, there's my thin spot. But that's the way it looks, and I think there's a little pucker there. But back here is more. However, there is good news. This part, once these are hammered out, these seams are trimmed and hammered, I don't think you're going to really see them. And then back here, this is indeed the back, my cape is going to cover that up, but I think these will clean up with a little hammering. So, there's my seams that I've hammered down. What I wound up doing, I didn't use a dowel. I just took them to my workbench and laid them flat and just like that. Oh, there we go. Okay. I don't know. Doesn't look bad. Not bad at all. And this one, and we line them up, put the tops together, match these. There's teeth marks. Bring her down, pin it together, clip it, whatever. And then give it a good stitching, and then we'll trim the, seam, and then hammer it, and go from there. But this is easy. Nothing like doing it. Doggone sleeves, armpit stuff. Okay, so it tells you to do pretty sides together. Well, that isn't the words they say, but that's what they mean. They say, because it's just like all these others, we're going to sew it right there, and then we're going to lay it flat, and it'll look real nice. They actually say what to do is, I think that they are allowing 1/2 inch seam allowance on theirs, and then they trim one of them off. Where I've been trimming two, they trim one off, and then they take the other and lay over the top of it, and then they top stitch it down on the back. As you can see, I'm not doing that because, well, this is leather, and I think the fabric that gives you a lot stronger seam on fabric, and two, I don't think that look would be appropriate on a coat of this caliber. So I'm not doing it. I really don't think it's going to pull apart, tear apart at the seams. In fact, I think a person would have to work pretty hard if they wanted to just start ripping at it, tear it apart. So what I'm using for thread, let me get you a spool. This isn't it, but I've got a big tall spool. But well, I can show you here in a minute. But it's bonded nylon, and it's for leather. And I'm using a leather point 110 size needle. This is number 6969 thread. And the reason that you need to use bonded nylon, this stuff is strong. I think it's like, I want to say 40 pounds, 50 pounds it takes to break that. Well more than it's going to take than that hide could hold. But the bonded nylon, super strong, but when the needle goes up and down through that leather, it heats up. And I run my machine pretty slow because, well, I don't want to make mistakes, and two, the slower it runs, the cooler that needle is, and you don't start fraying your thread. So that's why you need to use 69 bonded nylon for this. So I'm going to go ahead and pin that and then stitch it up and trim it, hammer the seams. Alright, got my center back seam done. Started at the top, wanted that as even as possible. I'm going to call it even as possible. Went all the way down. Here's our mountaintops, or our wolf teeth, or whatever you want to call them. Points, stars. Now at the bottom, remember when we was talking about on our pattern how I had marked, because the bottom, I wanted this natural edge. This is my bottom. And I wanted a natural edge at the bottom. And I wanted it at the back. So I slid my pattern around until I got a pretty good natural looking flow from this natural edge to this curve right on here. So that paid off real well. I'm pleased with that. I'm really, really happy with that. So I'm gonna go ahead and trim this and hammer it. Take a look at it. But here's what it is. Sleeve back. I don't know if you can tell. Okay, there it is, sitting on the blue helper. A little bit. This is my lining. It's wool. It's imported from Europe. Anyhow, it's got stripes. And so this is the same process as the outside, the coat sleeves. Only difference is this one being fabric. I'm following the directions on what it says in the rule book. It says to, do your half-inch seam allowance or whatever, sew it down, and then it says press the folds flat, or the seam flat. So that's what I did. I revved up my wife's iron and gave him a little bit of a flattening. I gotta say, I'm pretty happy with my choice on the stripes, this striped wool. And obviously nobody can care, nobody's gonna see it, but when I've ironed, pressed these seams flat, and I don't know if that's flat enough, but I think it probably is. But look at that, it looks like a feather. I think that's cool. But it's gonna be on the inside and nobody will ever see it. This is up at the collar. Here's my lining. Got the back seam sewn together and then pressed the sides of the seams flat. Looks okay. Well, here's what I wound up doing. It didn't work real well trying to put it together on the mannequin, so I put the liner on inside out, stuck it on myself, put the coat over the top, and took some of these little clips and then clipped the lining at the end of the sleeves down here, so when I pulled my arm out they wouldn't drag back out. I did it on both sides, and then I took a couple of clips and grabbed up here on the corners where I could see, just to hold that in place, and then went to take it off, and I got it hanging up on the mannequin. And took a peek in one of the sleeves, this one, and the seam is really close. There. It's pretty, it's right there. I just grabbed it and pulled it with my thumb. So that's kind of what I'm wanting to go for. That look right there. Not quite centered, not bad. Yeah, that might make it look a little better. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Okay, I thought this over and I decided that the best way to figure out how I want to lay that up there before I cut anything up would be to take and make a pattern or a different piece of pattern material from the original. I went ahead and I didn't cut out the fold over of about a 1/2 inch on the front and the width here, because I won't be hemming that. So this would be just the actual piece of leather that would go on the jacket. So the charcoal pencil is the original. The black is an outline of how this will look, how this will lay, with that stripe running straight down the middle. And then the pink is putting this piece at the center, which at first I thought that's what I wanted, but I really, now looking at it, I think, so I just laid the pink over how it would have to be cut to, and how it would look. But I just gotta think that that stripe has to go down straight down the middle and the back. So, the plan for today. What do you think? Look around and see. I like it. And it's pretty centered. So then it says, now it tells us to get the tab out of the way, but then it just says to sew these together with the right sides together. And so we just stitch up like this. So here is our two pieces, and you can put the right sides together. And then what I'll do is sew here, across here, and up there, and then it will be ready to start the assembly onto the coat. And right here is where it talks about that. So we'll wind up doing this part next. And thanks to my wife, she'd done a lot of help with when I started the mock-up, because I couldn't quite figure out what they was doing here. I just couldn't. But she explained that we just take as it's turned inside out, and I'll show you guys as we get to there. We stitch just one layer of it to the back of the coat, and then we flip it back up over like so. And I just couldn't quite understand that. She also showed me a few pointers on getting the armpits and sleeves and such to line up. But alright, I get this sewn, and now I'm just like we did earlier, cutting the excess off on the edge of the seam. I probably could have stitched a little closer to the edge. I didn't. And then we'll turn it inside out, right side out, whatever. And then I'll... Okay, there's my finished edge. I took this, I forget what they call them. I call it a bone folder. It's not made out of bone, but I think, for some reason, I think that that's what it's called. And then worked this corner in there to get that worked, and then I just took and drug this inside along and worked this up as tight as I could to, you know. Now, for this to go together like I believe it should, we're basically going to turn this like this. This needs to line up with that tab on the cape and with the center seam right there. And all of those layers need to be flush. And that's the center layer, or center seam, on the jacket and the liner. And then these stars impersonating X's impersonating as stars need to come to the seam wherever that's at. I think it's right, yeah, right there. Needs to go to this seam. So that means that's got to pull up. And come clear in there like so. That means this is wrong. Okay, and so there's this star. Now, I don't know that that star needs to line up because we're pulling that. So I'm going to think on that. But that's the deal. And then I just got to just work this around until this winds up here. So well, it's going to line up there without much fuss. Pretty close. This would be handy to have 3 or 4 fingers extra. Okay. And I'll have to work on getting that flush, but I think once I get this one and this one ballparked in, then I'm going to just pick it up and lay it down on the table and then work around on it. This is what I used. I was going to use a machine to stitch this back here, but it's pretty thick and I was having a hard time getting things to line up, so I used this, I'm not sure what they call this needle, but it goes right in here, and it's like that one. And this thread here, it's waxed. I think it's polyester. It's brown. But I whip stitched all the way around. And okay, so this here is the amount that winds up being, when this all comes forward, where you're going to button your coat or whatever. So it folds over. It's not wanting to because the collar's not turned right side out. But so then now I'm going to figure what I'm going to do on here to finish this, now that I know how much I have to fold over. But before I really didn't measure, I didn't know how it was going to be. There we go. I didn't really know how far to have to fold this over, because I was thinking I was only going to fold it over maybe half of an inch, but this is almost 2 inches, and this is 2 inches on this. Or either way, one of them's 2 inches, the other is just a shade under 2 inches to line up on these corners. So stopped with my whip stitches, left my extra string here, so I could go ahead and come on over here and sew this across. Once I get this all fiddling around here done with my lining, then I can finish stitching across to that and finish that top off, and before this gets folded down on the top of here. And then that will be sewn all the way around the back. And I'll probably wind up hand sewing that too. I can't think that won't look good. So really, when this is done, shouldn't see any machine stitches. And well, you can see the seams, but you can't. You could guess that somebody hand stitched them, but you won't guess that. But either way, there's no going to be visible machine stitches. Not that that matters for my coat, but just so I don't forget, I went ahead and put these clips on the back to hold those, so that stays at the bottom. Because I'm afraid if I pull it too far over the front, as I'm hand stitching that down, that I might roll that up a little bit or something. So maybe that'll help me from going too far. But it's probably just going to take paying attention. So well, here's what I've got. I decided against folding this over. I was going to fold it like twice, but I decided against that. So I folded this lining back, oh, I don't know, back to here, and kind of stuck it under here. And I went ahead and finished my stitches over and then come back and tied it off. Same thing over here. It looks like I could probably put one more stitch right there. Probably should thread. And I got this little leather needle. Came in that kit, that little pack I got. So I will do that. But first, and I'll probably use this and that 69 thread to go ahead and put my collar. Get it finished up like it should be. After a considerable amount of arguing, cussing, fussing, and carrying on, I switched my game plan from hand sewing up to using my post machine. I wasn't having any fun, and I don't know how well this is going to turn out, but we're getting there. Got the collar on. I got these I'm not sure how that's going to set. That's going to be folded about like so. And that comes over here. So we're getting something going here. Right or wrong, I don't know. But I'm going to have doubled where that's weak. It's doubled over, clear back to there. So that'll help that. I don't know. And then here's my, when I put the, see, I top stitched right, and it went right here to tie that down over the front, over my insulator liner. So, but this is the fold line, and I punched holes instead of using an awl. I wish I would have used an awl when I stitched that down. But if the collar is down, you can't see it. So, and I'll tell you what, I've seen worse coats. I did one time see a coat that was ran over by a lawnmower. One of them big bush hogs. So I've seen worse coats. So, anyhow, we'll see how it continues. I'm not real sure how that's gonna look till it's done. Alright, here's the back. Not perfect.